Again, welcome everyone for being here. We appreciate all of your attendance and support. We will go through the presentation after some speakers following me, and I don't think we have any, but if there was a public comment outside of the attendees, we will ask that they leave questions for us, and they will be responded to after the meeting. And then after the presentation, we'll have open Q&A with all of the attendees. So we're honored and grateful for all your attendance and support to come, as well as being here today. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to the Senior Housing Committee Chairman, Bill Bembry. Bill?
Thank you for being here today. We appreciate you very much. It's pretty cold out, and I know people have come from a long distance to be here, and we are grateful for your attendance. As the chair of the select board stated, this is a public meeting. It's open and it is posted. The agenda is to discuss and present information regarding the proposed Evergreen Circle Senior and Multi-Generational Housing Development at Care Drive to state and regional officials. And originally, I was going to go through the list of invitees that have attended, but the list kept growing. It grew so fast it outpaced my list. So if I don't call your name, do not feel slighted. It's just that the list outgrew what I had. And so what I will do is indicate that Senator Joe Comerford is here today, Representative Susanna Whips, State Representative Susanna Whips, Secretary Edward Augustus, Secretary Robin Lipson. Again, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, I sincerely apologize. And if you wish, you can correct me as we speak. I have Economic Development Assistant Corporation, Sheila Matthews, Linda Dunleavy, Executive Director of Franklin Regional Council of Government, Rural Development Incorporated, Gina Govoni, Executive Director, Alyssa LaRose, and Chairman Smith of the Select Board, Scott Bastarach of the Select Board, James Loyne of the Select Board, myself, Chair of the Senior Housing Committee, Jean Galbraith, who is a member of the Senior Housing Committee and the Secretary, Paula Betters, Gary Betters, Jacqueline Boyden, and Leslie Brown. And that's as far as we're going to go today, but we will acknowledge later through the mail everyone that has attended. And again, we appreciate your response. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a quick 5 to 10 minute answer and Q&A where our officials can ask whatever questions they like, and hopefully we will have the appropriate answers. At this time, I'd like Senator Comerford and Representative Susanna Whips to come forward and give a short, or you can give it from where you're at. You can give it from where you're at.
Now, every time I walk into this building, I just smile. I'm seeing the people who are playing cards or socializing, and just the warmth. This is such a beautiful building, and situated next to a beautiful library and soon-to-be housing, which is just lovely. And I love that you put your best foot forward, and I'm very happy to have the secretaries here. I mean, we are batting 1,000 today out in this part of the state with secretaries and folks from the governor's administration, Kristen Aleko, and our Rural Affairs Director, Ann Goby, here with us as well. They're listening to us, and we are showing them how much we benefit out here from the resources they give us and how respectfully and well we treat them and how we get so much out of what they send us. So happy to be here today with my colleague, Senator Comerford. And
Beautiful. As usual, I could say ditto, Rep. Whips. I'm overjoyed to be here. I really do think Erving and your commitment to the town's investment in the community is exemplary. And I'm so grateful also to be joined by the members of FERCOG, a wonderful team, which is, as everybody knows out here, our regional planning agencies are often how we get the work done in these small towns. I also want to shout out to Brian, the town administrator, who is Herculean in the kind of lifting, and also the planning committee for Evergreen Circle. The kind of process that Rep. Whips and I have been witness to and participated in partnership with Gina and Alyssa and their team, is just inspirational. And you can see that our secretaries, Secretary Litz and Secretary Augustus, were so happy that you get to be part of this and witness this, something we see all the time, but we don't take for granted what happens here. So thank you so much, everyone.
So my name is Jackie Boyden. I'm on the Senior Housing Committee. I've also been very fortunate to be on the Senior Center Housing Committee and the Library Housing Committee. And I'm very pleased that you're very happy with the way that the Senior Center looks, because we're very proud of what we built, and hopefully you might get an opportunity to visit our library as well. When we envisioned the senior housing, we envisioned being part of the whole campus look, so we're trying to achieve that. But I'm here to give you the history of Care Drive. So the site that we're on, which includes the Senior Center and the library, was originally farmland and a Christmas tree farm. And then in 1996, the town had an opportunity to buy some of this land from Grand Trunk, which they did, excluding the library parcel because there was a house there. In 2011, 2011, Senior and Community Center was completed. And then in 2014, we acquired the farmhouse for the library. So now it's one big campus. And then in 2020, the library opened. The history of the Senior Housing Committee is a bit more complex. We've been doing this for a very long time. In our original master plan in 2002, we identified the need for senior housing. And in 2003, the ad hoc committee was formed. Officially, the Senior Housing Committee was formed in 2006. However, at that particular time, there was no money for senior housing. But there were funds, and there was help for senior center. And so we focused on building a senior center. Our former senior center used to be in our old elementary school that's just located down the road. There was a single floor. So we did the senior center. And from 2014 to 2015, the committee was dormant. That's only a year. And then it got revitalized in 2016 to 18. We did the community survey. We did the housing demand analysis. We did the site study, was completed. The committee members visited other senior housing properties, and we began drafting for an RFP. In 2019, an RFP was released, but we had no takers. In 2022 to 2023, hold on, so you can see. I just have to hit the button, right? Yes, here we go. Nope. Please. All right, he's going to do that, so I'm just going to read. Okay. The town of Erving worked with the city of Greenfield and the towns of Montague, Deerfield, and Orange on a complete neighborhoods initiative that accessed additional technical support from Mass Housing Partnership to work with the Senior Housing Committee, to revise our request for proposal and to prepare for a new procurement. In 2023, the Senior Housing Committee and the Select Board released a new request for proposal in July with a due date in October. Public review of the proposal was received from RDI, was conducted in November and December, and in December of 2023, the Select Board determined that the proposal to be highly advantageous and authorized the staff and the Senior Housing Committee to work with Rural Development Incorporated to refine the proposed site layouts and to prepare for informational sessions with the public. In 2024, the work between the Senior Housing Committee and the Rural Development Inc. continued to refine the proposal and to schedule the informational sessions in April. In May, annual town meeting voted to approve the creation of the 2 lots and the conveyance of these lots to a long-term lease to RDI for the purpose of creating affordable senior and multi-generational housing. And that brings us to today. And then the next speaker up is Gina Govani.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, good. You want me to-
I think I'm good.
You got it?
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. My name is Gina Govoni, and I just want to briefly, for those of you who know my organizations, just give you a quick history on the relationship. I'm the executive director of both the Franklin County Regional Housing and Redevelopment Authority, also Rural Development Inc. HRA, as we refer to our public housing side, was created in 1973 to serve all of those communities in Franklin County that are too small to have their own housing authority primarily. In the early 90s, we created RDI, and we did so to take advantage of other funding sources that were not available for public housing in particular. Since creating Rural Development Inc., we have created over 100 units of affordable homeownership. That was actually where we started. In 2000, we started with multifamily rental. And since then, we have created over 151 units of rental housing across Franklin County. You see here pictured Sanderson Place in Sunderland, which is our most recent development on the right. And then below you see some of the units at Solar Village in Wisdom Way in Greenfield, which was the last multi-unit homeownership development that we created. We have been working with Austin Design Cooperative. Our architects are not here because we're not going to go that granular today. But they've been a wonderful partner in actually both of these developments, and they've been helping us with the designs to date for Erving. And if I can figure out how to, there we go. This is very small, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of how the two organizations that I manage work together. Basically, when RDI builds something, we enter into a management agreement with the Regional Housing Authority. So we have a property management and a maintenance team that manage both public and private housing units throughout the county, going all the way west to Charlemont, all the way east to Orange, and all the way down to Sunderland and Whately. So you can see Erving is right in our, it's right in our grasp here, and we're very excited to be bringing these 26 units on. Looking forward to working with partners in the community to assist residents in any ways that they see fit. But most importantly, we're excited to be building housing in conjunction and so close to the community resources that already exist here in Erving. And we're thrilled to have you today. Next, what I want to do is just talk a little bit more about why we need housing here in Franklin County and what's going on. So I'm going to bring up Megan Rhodes from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to set the stage a little bit for why we need housing here in the region, but also across the state. Quick stats for everybody here. We really do need housing in this region. We just completed a regional housing plan for Franklin County, and it shows that our vacancy rates are very, very low. We have very little housing available for people. In fact, we have the third lowest vacancy rate for our rentals at 1.9%, and our home ownership vacancy rate is even lower at 0.2%. And actually, I just checked the numbers today, and they're a little bit even lower, the most recent numbers. And to be a healthy housing market, you really should have vacancy rates of 4 to 5% to provide that flexibility for people to downsize, to move, to find new units. We don't have any flexibility if we have any housing stock available. It's very, very tight right now. In fact, our regional housing plan found that there is a net affordable housing shortage right now today of about 3,000 units. that are affordable to our existing residents. That shortage is even more acute for our lower income residents here in Franklin County. That graph on your left, left, shows that over half of our renters here in Franklin County are paying too much for housing. More than a third of their income is going to just housing alone here in Franklin County, and that is a lot of money. And when you take housing costs and you add transportation costs into housing, the unaffordability here in Franklin County becomes even more unattainable when you combine those two costs, because when you don't have any choices and you have to drive long distances to places, your costs associated with your housing goes dramatically higher. And here in Franklin County, in our rural area, many people pay almost 2/3 of their incomes on just housing and transportation alone, leaving very little over for basic life necessities like food, medical, basic other things. And so we really need more housing here in Franklin County, and we need to make sure that it's affordable and accessible for all ages. I think so, and it's very different when you look at an urban area, when you have choices, like you can walk, you can bike, or take transit. It is very expensive here in Franklin County. So that's the stage very briefly of why we need housing here in Franklin County. We need housing at all income levels and for all ages. It's a very dire situation, which is very, very exciting because we're here to celebrate new housing. I think I'll turn it over to RDI, to Alyssa, to talk about this actual project.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Megan. And also thank you, Brian, and the Senior Housing Committee and everyone in the town of Erving. I used to work at the FERCOG as a regional planner, doing a lot of planning related to housing, and I know how much work it takes and how many years it can take to really lay the groundwork for projects like these to come to fruition. And a lot of this work is being done by volunteer committees, like the Senior Housing Committee. So these are folks who are putting in their own time to, make these projects happen in our communities. So I'm going to provide an overview of the site and our proposal and get a little bit more into some of these lovely designs that maybe you've taken a look at. So Jackie did a great job of talking about the history of the site here at Care Drive. The town has really done a phenomenal work at kind of creating a real community here. When we look at our rural towns, finding locations that can support multifamily housing can be really difficult just because of the lack of water and sewer or the lack of transit. So this is really an ideal site for a community the size of Erving, which is just over 1,600 people. This site is obviously right next to the senior center, which we're in, the library. The elementary school is right next door, serving pre-K through 6. And it's about a half mile down the road with sidewalks, so accessible to the village of Erving side and other amenities there. And so for a rural housing development location, this really is a fabulous opportunity to leverage all of those public amenities that the town has really worked very hard to put here. And these are just some of the photos of the inside of the library, which is right next door. And so if you do get a chance to go over and check that out, they provide programming for all ages. They have a makerspace room, which is so cool. And then obviously here at the senior center, as you can tell, a very high level of service and programming happening here. Thanks to Paula Betters and her staff. They do a lot here. There's an exercise room down the hall. There's a nurse that comes in once a week. There's food pantry, meals, exercise programs, lots of things happening for the seniors here. So we're so excited to be able to have senior housing directly behind the senior center. And so when you're walking in, you might have noticed a few open house signs out in the field with a little snow person. So that's roughly where the new senior housing building will start. And so it will be facing the senior center. It's very easy access for folks to come on over, take advantage of all the services here. So we're so excited to have that kind of leveraging those opportunities. Do I go down or over? Over. So this gives you an overview of what we're proposing together with the town of Erving, because there's actually 2 projects here. There's a public infrastructure project, which involves the extension of Care Drive out that way, as well as the water and sewer that luckily the town had great forethought and built water and sewer lines basically to the end of the current Care Drive with the intent of extending it. So that infrastructure would be extended along Care Drive. There will also need to be a sewer pump station that would serve all uses on the site. So it would actually serve this building, the library, and our housing. But in terms of the housing project, RDI was aware of this site and aware that this was coming along, and we're looking forward to the town reissuing the RFP. We knew this was a great site. The town actually was looking for more units than what we proposed. You saw Sanderson Place on the slides earlier. That's 33 units of senior housing in Sunderland. That was bid pre-pandemic. We really slid that one in under the under the radar, but a lot has changed since then, especially around cost of construction. So we really did a lot to kind of figure out where is our sweet spot. 1 bedroom senior affordable units don't generate a lot of revenue for a property. So what we ended up finding was that we really needed to mix it up. And so what we are proposing is 18 units of 1 bedroom senior housing in the large building on your right. That will be directly behind here. It's all on 1 floor, which we know that seniors tend to prefer. It also means that our operating costs will be lower over time because we're not building an elevator building. And then to the left behind the library, we're proposing 2 4-unit townhouse style buildings. And so it would be 8 units total with a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. These will not be age restricted, but we do have a focus on accessibility and multi-generational living, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And we know that there's a need for both senior housing, but also for non-age restricted housing in the community. And this also just helps our kind of financial feasibility moving forward, thinking about operating this property in the long term. So some of the amenities in the housing itself, the senior amenities we'll have 2 fully accessible 1-bedroom units. All units will be visitable. All bathrooms will be fully accessible, roll and walk-in showers. We do that in all of our we did that at Sanderson Place. So that's for all units. We really want this to be a community where people can hopefully stay for as long as possible. In-unit washers and dryers and on-site parking as well. And then on the townhome side, as I mentioned, we have 1 fully accessible 2-bedroom unit proposed, 5 2-bedroom units, which are 2-story, which would be great for families, smaller families, and then 2 3-bedroom units that actually have a bathroom and a full bathroom and a bedroom on the first floor. So and the bathroom will be fully accessible. So that would allow for potentially either multi-generational families to live in those units, or just a family that has someone maybe with a disability or needs additional accessibility. So we're really excited about this mix and these designs that the site layout that my colleague Jen worked with Austin Design to create, and looks really beautiful. And I should mention too, we are planning on these properties being passive house design, so extremely energy efficient. As you can see, there's solar panels already shown on the roofs. We are planning on having them be all electric and meeting very high energy standards. In terms of our project timeline, this is our very optimistic but timeline that we would love to stick with, but we know that there's a lot of pieces that need to fall into place, both for the public infrastructure project as well as the housing project. But we've already accomplished the first 2 bullets there. Town meeting has voted on the land conveyance, and we now have our agreement in place with the town. So we are going to begin working through the comprehensive permit process very soon. And then following that, we'll be looking at applying for funding from various sources, the main one being from HLC and the one-stop rental funding round, which we're hoping to put in an application next winter. We know that sometimes projects have to go through several rounds before they're funded, so that's where this timeline may change. But at the earliest, we would have lease up of housing units in 2028 but very well could be later, depending on how things go. So that brings us to the budget. And this is where Brian, I can go over the housing budget first, but then you can come up and talk about the public infrastructure budget. So this is very preliminary and based off of kind of our initial concepts, but we do use a cost per square foot number in our budgets that's based on projects that are kind of in the pipeline and either in construction or nearing construction, and we try to be conservative about that. But as all of you, certainly in housing development, know, these numbers will change, but this gives you a good ballpark of what we think the funding asks may be. We'd be looking at both federal and state tax credit equity, state soft debt funds, again, through the Housing One Stop. We think this will be really competitive for Federal Home Loan Bank, affordable housing program, some permanent debt, again, at this scale and at this level of affordability. We're not able to support a huge amount of permanent debt, but this is what we think we can do, as well as some other gap funding that we'd be going for. So right now we're looking at a total development cost per unit of just over $600,000 and HLC subsidy per unit of around $130,000. Brian, do you want to talk more about the public infrastructure?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So as Alyssa explained, there was foresight from the earlier committees who have worked on this neighborhood, and the utilities are at the end of the existing drive, so we're ready to make those extensions. We do need to improve the water lines. We do need to install a pump station. Right now we have estimates from our engineering firms that work is about $1.7 million. The town has already appropriated approximately $149,000 towards that effort on the sewer side. And thanks to the work of Rep. Whips, there's a $100,000 earmark in the Affordable Homes Act. I'm getting the odd to add Senator Comfort. Thank you both for your support. We're working with A&F to work to get that money released, and that would be used towards getting those two projects into engineering and development. And then we're very fortunate the land is largely flat where we need to redirect the road. And so our engineering costs and construction costs for the road are much less. We're estimating that they're going to come in around $600,000. So those are our two projects that we're going to be working on. We do anticipate starting applications in the One Stop program. I know that just opened this week, and we're going to be working on our statement of interest process now. That's it.
Do you want to open it up to questions?
Yeah. I don't know who the right person is to field questions. There's many of us who can do that.
Can I ask a question? When you were talking about solar on the roofs, which I hope somebody can, I don't understand. Generally with an apartment building, like everybody has their own electric meter. How does that work? And are people who move in here, is rent going to include all utilities, or how does that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so for our properties, all utilities are included in the rent. So the number of meters will be, probably one per building, I'm guessing. So the electricity would be paid by RDI or the owner of the property, and then any kind of solar credits would come to the owner.
Okay. No, thank you very much, because electric heat can get incredibly expensive, and if there's not coverage, and I didn't know how that was split up, but that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Yes.
Not a question, a comment, but Mr. Secretary, we've talked about this before, but the fact that $2.3 million just to extend the road and extend sewer and water is a unique condition and a challenge of Franklin County and rural areas, where urban areas often don't have those additional expenses, and it's part of the challenge and struggle we have to build housing in our region. And I know you know that, but it's glaring when you see $2.3 million before you even start building housing.
I guess I would also point out that in the budgets on the housing side, we don't necessarily have a local contribution number, but on the public infrastructure side, there's already local contribution there, and obviously that whole 2 million dollars is supporting the housing, and so that along with the provision of the land. And I know that HLC is very aware of small towns struggling with having things like CPA funds or other local funds to contribute. So just wanted to point that out, that the town's contributing quite a lot to the development of the housing, and I'm sure that the state will agree with that. I hope.
Just more of a comment. I know that you said you weren't going to be ready to put in for the one stop till like from a year from now, but keep in mind, you know, that we do that expression of interest. So even if you're just thinking about this project, you may want to just put in an expression of interest this year, just so that you get feedback. Doesn't hurt. That's all.
And I think that was the plan, right?
Absolutely. On the town side, yes. I don't know what RDI's plan is. Yes, we're ready.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
we will begin that work this week. We're eager. We know RDI's timeline looks a little bit different with their process. So.
Yeah, and I should mention the one step, it's always confusing, but the one step that we're talking about is the rental funding round through HLC, which is typically once a year, and it's typically in the winter. So that's what we're aiming for next year. Yeah.
Yes, Senator.
Could you help us understand how much of the water sewer infrastructure has to be in place before the construction starts? Is there a parallel process for some of this, or is it sequential? I love the timeline on the housing, but I just was wondering where those two things meet.
My understanding is it can be built simultaneously. At this point, I should offer that Alyssa did note that these two facilities in our proposal would also be linked to this new infrastructure. So there would be some reworking in Care Drive to support these two facilities. But we would try to do that sort of in tandem. We wouldn't want to get too far ahead of RDA's project. But if we start the engineering work now and prepare all of our schematics and our bid documents, we'll be in a good position to launch that work when it makes sense to align with RDI's work.
Yeah.
The road, technically, town meeting has already adopted the road extension, so from a layout perspective, it exists, it's been surveyed, it's bound, so we're ready. It's literally just the construction at this time.
And one more. RDI, as I read, was a nonprofit. So would they be exempt from paying property tax, or is there a pilot agreement or anything like that?
The eventual ownership of the property will be an LLC. So because we're accessing state tax credits as part of our funding, there'll be an investor that will be a part of the ownership. So there'll be an LLC where RDI is one of the members of the LLC, and then there'll be private investors. So it actually is privately owned in the end. And Gina, I don't know if you want to tackle the property tax question.
I'm happy to. So we do pay taxes is the short answer. And in addition to that, the cost of developing this is not really akin to what we're going to be paying. What we would hope to work out with the town is a value-based approach where we look at the income of the property. That's what we've done in similar towns, like in Sunderland. We've just worked out a similar deal. So this is, I think, a win for the community in terms of taxes.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Other questions that we can answer? Yes, Secretary.
Not so much a question, but is it okay to keep a little praise? I'm so struck by this. We spent about 6 months traveling around the state in this past year, getting input from about more than 600 older adults about what mattered to them in their communities as they grew older. And you have captured it all in this plan. What people say is that the most important thing to them is to have an accessible and affordable place in the heart of their community, like not off down the road somewhere. They don't want to be isolated. I'm not sure they said they wanted to be next door to a library, but they did say they want to be where things are happening. They don't want to be segregated from people of other ages. They care a lot about the environment. I mean, we had older adults tell us that they care so much about the impact of adverse weather, heating costs, cooling costs, et cetera. They really care about the environment. And and they want to be somewhere that's familiar, where they're not leaving their community. So somehow in this small town of only 1,600 people,
You have just hit it out of the park in terms of this plan. It really captures everything that we've heard, not just in rural areas, but in urban areas as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like, oh, sorry.
Yes, sir.
I want to earn my lunch. So. And let me just start there and just say thank you for the amazing hospitality, all the folks who put on the meal and served us. I don't think I've had a more warm welcome anywhere I've been. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And certainly impressed me with the hospitality of this community. And I want to thank Senator Comerford and Representative Whips for helping kind of introduce this project to me. And we were in Athol earlier and here later in the day. And you've got two very able legislators who are very passionate and knowledgeable and have good relationships not only within the legislature but within the administration. And they're very good in terms of keeping in communication with us, and I want to thank them both for their support of the tools that come into HLC's, Housing and Livable Communities Toolbox, which are the tools that you all are going to be trying to access as you try to move this project forward. So things like tax credits. The governor introduced a bill that the legislature passed, not this past summer, but the summer before, that took the low-income housing tax credits from $40 million a year to $60 million a year. That means we can say yes to more projects. And then the Affordable Homes Act that the governor signed in August of this year that the legislature passed, and your two legislators were very involved in that whole process. 49 new policy changes, as well as $5.3 billion of authorizations for many of the programs, including several that you're looking to access here, that support both the infrastructure side of the project as well as the actual housing side of the project. So, you know, I love the synergy here. You've got a community that, honestly, I was just sitting here thinking, boy, if Washington could work like this place works, so many of our problems, you're thoughtful, you're civil, you reason together, you identify common problems, you come up with a plan, you work your plan, you work with each other, you work with other town agencies and outside partners, and then you get progress and you solve the problem. Isn't that a lesson that we ought to export to other parts of the country in this day and age? But you're doing exactly right here in Erving. I want to applaud you. I know how difficult it is, volunteers, you know, on these committees trying to take sometimes really dense, complicated processes and understand it, master it, and then figure out how to move your project forward. So it's no small feat what you've been able to do here. And again, 22 years. I wasn't even born when you guys started. The important thing, I think, too, is that we've got the resources, you've got the plan and the vision. We'll continue to work with you. One kind of correction slate. We do funding rounds twice a year. So we do a winter round and we do a mini round. So there's two opportunities each year to put the project in. You're right, usually the first one doesn't, you know, score to the top, but you get a lot of good feedback from the first submission. You tweak your plan, you get some good feedback, and then you come back stronger and usually teed up to move forward in a subsequent round. So I think, you know, you're on the right track there. And, you know, as Secretary Lipson said, you know, the senior needs in this state are profound. What we've seen is very little movement in the housing ecosystem. You're talking about 1.9% vacancy. Massachusetts as a state has the lowest vacancy rate of the 50 states. So think about that, the whole state, one end of the state to the other, so little movement. So that means when, you know, you're at a different phase of life and you need to change your housing situation. Maybe you're a young growing family, you need to get more space. There's not a lot of opportunities, there's not a lot of inventory. Whereas you get it to a different phase, you're an empty nester, you want to downsize, but you want to stay in the community where your faith-based community is, your friends, your network is, and you want to stay here, but there's not many options that are affordable, accessible, near the things that you need, transportation and other services. So you've solved for a lot of those things with this plan. And we're gonna be coming out probably in 3 weeks with a state housing plan. It's the first one in 40 years. It's gonna have regional housing goals for each part of the state. What we need to do for seniors, what we need to do for ownership, what we need to do rental, low income, extremely low income individuals. And you're gonna be fitting in nicely with that plan. You recognize what you as a small town can do to move the needle, to meet the needs of the folks in this community, which if every community is doing that, we're gonna see those needs across Massachusetts change. And then the movement that you wanna see, those natural, I talk about life cycle housing, when your kind of situation changes and you need to change your housing situation, you have options. You have options. When you don't have any options, all the power goes to whoever has what's in strong demand and short supply. And we need to put more supply in the mix so folks have choices, they have options. That's when you really provide freedom to people. So that's what we're all committed to doing with the additional resources and policies. You guys are doing everything you should be doing on the ground, and I think we'll find synergy to work together, and look forward to coming back out and breaking ground at some point and cut some ribbons after that. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there further questions that we can answer for you all, or I know that Paula's been making rounds with dessert, and I can stop talking. What? Oh, Daniel Hammock, what title do we even, I don't even know what title he used, but Dan Hammock serves on many boards and commissions in the town of Erving.
Thank you. I won't take up much of your time. Currently, I'm on the Zoning Board of Appeals and a few other things, and we're prepared for whatever comprehensive permit is needed to make this thing go forward. I'd like it on the record that we thank the taxpayers of Erving for having vision. I'm told, I wasn't there, but I'm told, Helen Keller said, worse than having no sight is having sight but no vision. It was over 30 years ago when the railroad company approached the town. They wanted to buy town land. Behind the trees back here, there are railroad tracks. They wanted to put in a facility where cars would come here by rail and be trucked all around New England on trucks to deliver to car dealers. At that time, the taxpayers voted to sell them the land for about $125,000. We didn't plan to do anything with it. A few years later, the Grand Trunk came back and said, and they bought private land too. Would help the whole community or the whole area. So they came back and said they're not going to do that. Well, we'd like to buy the land back. It was part of the negotiations of the select board and county commissioner at the time that we'd like to buy it back, but it's not as valuable to us as it was to you. So we bought it back for about $100,000 and got more land than we sold them. And we had the vision, and the taxpayers had the vision that someday we might have a senior center. Someday we might have a library. Someday we might have senior housing. And so it's called a senior center. It's a community center. It's not just for seniors. The whole community uses it. This is an absolute poster child for having vision for the future. And thanks goes to the Erving taxpayers. They're not here. I like to speak for the people who can't speak for themselves. So thank you.
If there's no further questions, I'll stop.
I think it's a great plan and everything, but I was wondering, as to the end of the cul-de-sac there, is there a room for expansion? Is there more land?
There is more land. We don't have any current plans at this time to do further development, but that was intentional. RDI's plan presented two parcels that, as we noted, the town meeting approved, and they were specifically designed to maximize that available land for future consideration. Absolutely. And there's some schematics. There's some of these schematics give you a sense of what that looks like. So. There's been requests for outdoor amenities such as walking areas or trails. So those are all considerations for the future. Okay. I will stop talking.
One thing I'll just say, it was mentioned that, the town of Erving was near, the group working on this, the constituents have all spoken, and we're looking for more housing than that, so it kind of lends to that we have more space and more future opportunity to expand, cost-wise and for success of moving something forward and starting that will likely be multi-phase, process down the road to expand. This is stage one, hopefully. And I would just, again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to the senior Housing Committee and all the efforts through the years, all the members through the years that have got us to this phase. It has been a long time coming. Now hopefully the momentum is there and we can get the support and funding and make this happen. I would just ask, is there any pointers, secretaries or anyone else here has on anything that we didn't identify or discuss or bring up today that helps position this project to be well funded? Or, be at the top of that list or in that plan named Erving in the regional housing plan.
You've got all your advocates here that are gonna make sure we don't forget how important this project is. And Alana Murphy is with the team that does all of the reviewing of the applications in HLC. So her being here is way more valuable than me being here. And so she will, be looking out for this project when it does come in, and be giving feedback in real time once we get a little further along. We have exact numbers, etc. But I think this fits right in with everything we're trying to accomplish at the state. So I think you'll do well.
And I've noticed this administration has so many people who are willing to sit down with you and review, line after line when it comes to grant applications and things like that. And it's something that we've been seeing time and time again when we reach out and say, well, how could we have done better? And they want to work with you. These folks want to make sure that these projects are funded. And, I'm just really impressed by the staff that the secretary you have, as well as many other departments across the state, where they want us to win. So they are willing to sit down and say, tweak this or do this, or this is what we're looking for, and they're very open and honest. It's not like you're going to get a rubber stamp rejected and have it sent back and you've got to figure it out. They're really, really great. We're fortunate.